Everybody at Big Ten Media Days wanted to jump on Indiana's Curt Cignetti about his schedule. Well, then he flipped the script on everybody else, and now the SEC is all upset. We will analyze what was said. We have receipts, and we'll discuss what the next batch of 6 Big Ten coaches said in day 2 of Big Ten Media Days in Las Vegas. Locked on Big Ten starts now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman, 40 years as a sports talk show host and play-by-play announcer. And I want to thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hit that free subscribe button. It'll push us well beyond the 20,000 we just reached. Thank you very much. And, of course, share, like, and follow so you don't miss a single episode. Today, we're going to talk about Coach Sig's scheduling firestorm at Big Ten Media Days in Las Vegas. We'll also talk about what 6 more coaches said as they hit the podium on day 2. Couple of them breaking some news here. I'll tell you what that was. Plus, we have our Big Ten Classics coming up this weekend. But let's start off with Indiana's Curt Cignetti. Really wanted to spend yesterday talking about Tony Petitti in his State of the Union, but shortly thereafter, Curt Cignetti hit the podium and but wants to know what Indiana's going to do following their 11-1 season, the encore, if you will. And a lot of people are taking shots at Indiana's light scheduling. So Cignetti gets up there and he says, look, talking season is over. It's time for the season. But then he did a lot of talking. And he was asked by Locked On's very own Spencer McLaughlin about canceling a non-conference home-and-home with Virginia. And it should be noted that Indiana also canceled a similar series with Louisville recently. Indiana is dropping Power Fours from its non-conference schedule in an effort to make its path to the playoffs easier in the new world of college football. And look, it worked last year. But when asked about it, Signetti looked at everybody and says, I'm using the SEC model of scheduling. Oh, boy, did the SEC fans get hot about that one? They're still talking about it. That's why we're talking about it here today. You know, SEC fans, a different breed. They're still in a daze a little bit. Like they haven't been to a college football championship in a few years now. And the fans that can barely recognize that the Big Ten has won back-to-back natties. SEC fan still thinks the SEC is the best conference in all college football. They also refuse to acknowledge that the Big Ten beat them in 5 of 6 games in the postseason last year. Sorry, but facts are facts. And it's still inconceivable to them, the SEC fan, that the Big Ten got 4 teams into the playoffs while their beloved SEC only got 3 teams in last year. You know, Alabama sitting at home. Well, they lost to lowly Vanderbilt. By the way, they lost to a Big Ten team in Michigan in the playoffs. In fact, they've lost to Michigan twice within a year's span. South Carolina sat at home outside looking in on the playoffs. They ended up losing to Illinois in a bowl game. Ole Miss sat at home and watched the playoffs on TV as well. SEC fan loves to point at the injustice that Indiana got into the playoffs instead of one of their powerhouses. Indiana, they say, benefited from a cupcake schedule and their 11-1 record, while their teams had to go through their so-called and overrated gauntlet of a schedule, their 8-game conference schedule. Sure, all fine and good. But last year, the Hoosiers did play a pretty easy non-conference schedule in FIU, Western Illinois, and Charlotte, plus then the 9-game conference schedule on their way to 11-1 season. This year's Hoosiers schedule includes Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, and Indiana State, and they've been receiving heat about that. So when pressed about his schedule, Signetti took a dig by saying that Indiana is just following the SEC model of scheduling. Whoa, wait, what? What are we talking about here? Says SEC fan. Now, after these comments, I think it finally shook SEC fan from its slumber. You can't compare us to Indiana, except you can. All right. Facts are a horrible thing to ruin your argument, SEC fan. As Coach Sig pointed out, 12 of the 16 SEC teams this year have three non-conference games against either Group of Five or FCS teams on their non-conference schedule. That's the same as Indiana. 12 out of 16. That's 75% for you math majors out there. 75% of the SEC uses the same scheduling philosophy as Indiana. And the SEC only has to play 8 conference games. Indiana has to play 9. How's that sit with you, SEC fan? Going to still make fun of Indiana? Still going to clamor for them to not make the playoffs? Look, we got proof. I just grabbed a handful of them. I didn't mention all 12. But if you don't believe me, this year's schedule, Auburn. I'll start with Auburn, alphabetical. Ball State, South Alabama, Mercer. Yeah, three very easy games. Ole Miss, they got Georgia State. They're taking on the Citadel this year. There's a couple other games. Tennessee taking on East Tennessee State, UAB, and New Mexico State. How about Georgia? Now there's a powerhouse school for you. They got Marshall on their schedule. They've got Austin P, and they've got Charlotte, who IU played last year. Very similar. Kentucky. Looks like they're going all MAC here. They got Toledo. They got Eastern Michigan. Tennessee Tech. Not Tennessee. Tennessee Tech. Alabama. Taking on Louisiana Monroe and Eastern Illinois. Now, they will play Wisconsin this year. I'll give them credit for that. Arkansas, they play AAMU. I had to look up AAMU. What is that? Well, it's Alabama A&M, not Alabama. They also take on Arkansas State and Memphis. Get my point here? Coach Signetti is correct. 12 of the 16 teams in the SEC are playing 3 Group of 5 or FCS teams on their schedule, just like Indiana. And the SEC plays 1 less conference game. Who's got the easier schedule? Who? Signetti and Indiana, they just want a level playing field when it comes to scheduling, because the truth is he's not only competing against other Big Ten teams, he's competing with SEC teams for playoff spots. Again, last year, Big Ten got 4, SEC got 3. So he's competing for that as well. Love to hear your comments on this one, SEC fan. I don't think you have much of a leg to jump on, but or stand on, but I'm sure I'll hear from you. Love to hear from Big Ten fans on this. Would love to hear from Indiana fans. Hit me up with the comments on this. This should be a lot of fun. Always appreciate that. Also, be sure to hit that free subscribe button down below. That way you'll never miss a single episode, and share, follow, and like Locked On Big Ten. That will help us out. Plus, again, you'll never miss an episode that way. We have a website called talkbig10.com. We put all of our podcasts on it, but there are also links for you to buy your favorite Big Ten merchandise ahead of the 2025 football season, so you can check that out as well. All right, we have a lot to do as we are all over media days for the Big Ten. 6 more coaches stepped up to the podium here yesterday, day 2, and a couple of them broke some news. PJ Fleck did at Minnesota. Got some breaking news out of Northwestern as well, and we'll let you know what they said and what I think about it. That's coming up in 1 minute right here on Locked On Big Ten. FanDuel takes our excitement of being a fan and watching games that we really enjoy, get excited about. It makes it even more exciting if you got a little action riding on it. You can do that with FanDuel. Summer sports in full swing here. Baseball games under the lights, whether you're into golf, soccer, whatever you like, FanDuel makes it even more exciting if you got a little something on the game. All right. If you're already following it, you can make it a little more exciting and brag to your friends who are maybe hitting the beach or whatever, not watching these games. Hey, I made a little money here. This is pretty cool. FanDuel makes it so easy to track your favorite matchups, whether it be individuals and props or games and point spreads. parlays, all that kind of stuff right there at your fingertips. The app is very easy to use. The in-game action, you got a feeling going into the ninth inning. They got that too, plus quick paybacks. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open up the FanDuel app today and visit FanDuel.com and get started. That's FanDuel.com. Thanks for checking us out here on Locked On Big Ten, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Hit that subscribe button down below so you never miss a single episode, and share, follow, and like Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. And don't forget our website, talkbig10.com. All right, day 2 out of Las Vegas, Big Ten Media Days. We had another half dozen coaches speak to the media, and they all had something interesting to say. I thought we'd run through it. Starting off on Wednesday was PJ Fleck from Minnesota. And this is a school that has won 8 straight of their bowl games. He's 6-0 in bowl games, and he is going into year 9. So he's rolling a little bit. I think he's just a perfect coach for Minnesota. Recruiting has been going well. He got a new contract through 2030. He's got one of the best running backs in the Big Ten in Darius Taylor. Also, here's where we broke a little bit of news, because we've talked about safety Coy Parrish. So he's an interception machine. He's got a nose for the ball. By the way, Minnesota had 17 interceptions last year, second in the country. Now, they're great at causing turnovers. But back to Parrish for a moment. We talk about Travis Hunter playing on both sides of the ball. He's going to play all 3 phases. The kid's not going to leave the field. He's going to play offense as well as defense, and he's going to play special teams. A 3-way player. They're going to ride him to victory as much as they can. They've also got redshirt freshman quarterback Drake Lindsey. By the way, fun fact I did not know, his grandfather played for Bud Grant and the Minnesota Vikings back in the day. Now that's you kids out there, Bud Grant, now that's an old school guy. He would wear short sleeves out on a 0-degree day. He was pretty tough. But PJ talked about being proud of entering his 9th year, because when he first came to Minnesota, he talked about not only putting in a new culture, but a sustained culture. And the fact that he's going into year 9 proves that he did that. He's quite proud of that. And he also talked about how cool it is that Big Ten Media Days are in Las Vegas, because he can bring a lot of these guys are bringing donors with them. I don't know if you noticed, I've noticed a couple of them mention when they thank everybody from the commissioner to their athletic director to their wives. Oh, and by the way, great being here in Vegas. We brought some big time donors with us. He's one of them as well. And one question he got before he left, somebody asked him, hey, if you could tell young PJ Fleck something about the future, what would you tell him? He says, look, let go of control. When a young coach starts out, he wants to control everything, be a control freak. He says, you got to roll with it. You got to be adaptable. So that was one thing that he said. Brought a lot of energy. It's always fun to watch PJ Fleck at these press conferences. After PJ, David Braun stepped up from Northwestern. Remember, 2 years ago, he was coach of the year, being thrown into an impossible situation where they won 8 games, including a bowl game. They slipped backward this past year and went 4-8. He talked about something that he was proud of in the time that he's been in the program now, going into his 3rd season, where it started out as a coach-led program. It is now a player-led program. I think coaches like to get to that point. Matt Rule talked about this the day before. Player-led programs really are programs that take the next step forward. And it's a sign you're heading in that direction. We can rely on the players more than the coaches having to tell them to do everything. All that kind of stuff. He mentioned how they're going to play one more year in that makeshift stadium on the lake. Ryan Field would be ready in 2026, but I think they kind of like playing there on campus in their makeshift stadium. Got 15 transfers coming into Northwestern this year, but he did point out Anto Saka on the defensive line, probably one of the best in the country. That's going to be one of their strengths this year. And here's where we got a little breaking news. So Preston Stone is going to be their starting quarterback. Now, 2 seasons ago at SMU, he had 32 total touchdowns, just 6 interceptions back in 2023. He's going to be the starter. He said, well, what about Jack Lausch? Well, we learned yesterday that Jack is going to play baseball. And I don't think anybody there at Northwestern was really surprised by it, but that's the deal. And unfortunately, you lose the guy you were counting on being your starting quarterback. He started 10 games last year, so they're going to move on to Preston Stone. So a little bit of breaking news between Jack Lausch is gone. Preston Stone will be the starter, and then Coy Parrish at Minnesota is going to play like not both sides of the ball, all three sides of the ball for Minnesota. So a couple of pieces of breaking news right out of the bat, day 2 of the Big Ten Media Days. After that, Luke Fickle took the stand. He is entering his 3rd year. He'll have Billy Edwards coming in from Minnesota to be his quarterback this year. And he talks about Wisconsin is going to be a traditional program. He talked about it a little bit. My interpretation is, look, they're still going to rely on recruiting high school kids, developing them, keeping them, and playing them. However, obviously, you still have to participate in the transfer portal. It's a transactional world, as they say. Don't forget they got Rico Hallman coming back for a 3rd year as a starter. Kid had 7 interceptions last year. Billy Edwards, the quarterback, going to be he's really taken on to the leadership role there. And Luke Fickle also kind of addressed the elephant in the room. Look, they lost their last 5 games last year, and he's been a 500 coach in the 2 years that he's been there. He said, look, that's not the standard. That's not the standard, and we've got to be better. He knows it. Unfortunately, he has probably the toughest schedule he's ever had in his career. And, he went on for a long time, so there was only time for one question from the media audience there. And the question happened to be, hey, your schedule's tough. What are you going to do? He said, look, we're not in the Big Ten West anymore. We don't do those divisions anymore. This is what we signed up for. We got to embrace it. The schedule is brutal. It's at Alabama. They got Ohio State this year. They're at Michigan. They're at Oregon. They're at Indiana. They take on Illinois. It's tough. It is a tough schedule. After that, Dan Lanning, Oregon, the defending Big Ten champion, stepped up. He said something else, not in the press conference of media days, but he said it to ESPN earlier in the day. He would like to revamp the playoff system so that it is done by January 1st. Now, think about his situation and why he said that. Look, they went undefeated last year. They won the Big Ten championship game, and they got the bye week, and then they ended up not playing for like 25 days, and then they ran into a buzzsaw at Ohio State, who had already had the Tennessee game under their belt. So he would like to condense it, make it more NFL style, where you're playing every week. Yeah, maybe you got that first weekend bye, but you're playing the next weekend and the next weekend, have it all done by January 1st. I haven't heard anybody else clamoring for that, so I don't know if that's the direction we're going. Maybe not. But in 3 years there, he's already got 35 wins, and very proud of being undefeated Big Ten champions last year. And he said his theme for this team this year is double down. He says, it's ironic we're in Vegas. Double down. Keep doing what we've been doing. It's been working. Undefeated Big Ten champions last year. We're going to want to do that again and then go further into the playoffs. He said they've been hitting the weight room hard. He said as a team collectively, they've added 1,300 pounds of muscle. I've never heard a coach throw out a stat like that before, but that sounds pretty cool. During the Q&A, he was asked about the Ohio State game. He goes, look, coaches, we had a lot of success last year, but you always remember those losses. He just thought over and over again what he could have done differently last year, and was asked about Dante Moore and his progression, because now he's going to be the starting quarterback. And he said Dante Moore's had great mentors. Dylan Gabriel last year. There's, you just go from Bo Nix to Dylan Gabriel, now to Dante Moore, the whole quarterback room. They've had guys to watch and be mentored by. Kind of more like, as he put it, a slow cooked meal as opposed to a microwave. Hey, go on as soon as you step on campus, you're a starter. Dante Moore's had a year to watch and get used to everything after he transferred in from UCLA. I thought it was a great analogy. Afterward, Jedd Fisch from Washington came out. Remember, he's got a new defensive coordinator, Ryan Walters, who was the head coach at Purdue. Before he was at Purdue, where things did not go well, he was a very successful defensive coordinator for Brett Bielema in Illinois. Jedd Fisch feels like, he said, Ryan Walters is the best defensive coordinator in the country. Again, a lot of transition at Washington, 19 transfers coming in as he goes into year 2. Last year, they had 21 new starters, taking over the team that had gone to the national championship and still managed 6 wins. I thought it was fantastic. This year, he said, what was the stat? He said, now we got 11 returning starters this year. Thought that was big. He likes his culture and mentality there at Washington to be a pro mentality. They want to run it like an NFL operation every single day. There's a lot of excitement about Damon Williams Jr. at quarterback this year. I think he's the breakout player of the year to watch for. He's only 19 years old. Got a great running back at Jonah Coleman, who has been with Jedd Fisch for 4 years, back to his days at Arizona. Denzel Boston coming back at wide receiver. And he pointed out how they're hosting Ohio State this year, and the year before they got to host Michigan. So 2 years in a row, they get to host the defending national champion out there at Husky Stadium. And so he's very excited. And then he threw in the fact that he, like Tony Petitti, is very pro 4 automatic qualifiers for the Big Ten in the playoffs and not the 5+11 that everybody wants. He doesn't want to leave it to chance of a selection committee. That's the running theme. But he made it a point in his own bullet points to talk about that to the media. And then finally, it was James Franklin from Penn State, who has all the pressure in the world to win it all. He's got Drew Allar coming back. He's got, don't forget, Jim Knowles, the defensive coordinator from Ohio State. Now his defensive coordinator at $3 million a year. Franklin said he's got the best personnel he's ever had there, and he says that's both coach and player. So he knows. He knows the expectations. He knows everybody is there. 14 all-conference players returning to the lineup. That's the most, and he's ready. Drew Allar wants to top his year last year. We had 30 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. He says Penn State has averaged 5 NFL picks a year off of his roster. He's sending kids to the pros. He's very proud of his program. Again, Q&A time. He's asked about Drew Allar, who he says, look, man, he's 6'5", he's 235. He can make every throw. He's going to be in the NFL next year. He knows there's pressure to win. He says, we embrace it. We earned it. Everybody's talking about us now nationwide because we've been talking about ourselves in this manner for years. But they got to do it this year. He was also asked about replacing Tyler Warren at tight end. Going to be a big loss. He said, look out for Khalil Dinkins. But also the fact that he's got 2 great future NFL running backs and Allen and Singleton in the backfield to pick up the load from Tyler, tight end, Allen and Singleton on the ground. They've upgraded at wide receiver through the portal. He's ready to go. As I've said time and time again, if not now, then when? This is Penn State's year. Now, those are my thoughts from what happened at the podium. Day 2 of Big Ten Media Days, and the third and final day here today, Thursday. Kirk Ferentz will lead it off, the dean of all football coaches, year 26. Barry Odom, the brand new coach of Purdue. Deshaun Foster going into year 2 at UCLA will speak. Jonathan Smith at Michigan State going into year 2. And, of course, Lincoln Riley will go. A lot of pressure on him. And then Sharon Moore of the Michigan Wolverines will close out things today. We'll recap everything all these guys said in tomorrow's podcast right here on Locked On Big Ten. All right, coming up, we're going to take a look a little further into the weekend with Big Ten Classics on the Big Ten Network. All that's coming up next right here on Locked On Big Ten. All right, it's time for our feature of the day, and we are going to take a look at Big Ten Classics coming up this weekend on the Big Ten Network. We always do this on Thursdays. We'll go full screen. If you're audio only, no problem. We'll describe what's on here. Now, we don't look at the entire Big Ten Network lineup, but we have similar interests, and we highlight a few things here that you might be interested in. So we'll pick it up on Friday, the 25th, with an Oregon Football Classic at 12 noon. Now, this will be 9 a.m. on the West Coast if you're an Oregon fan, but it's the Oregon-Penn State game from 2024 with Jalen Gabriel threw 4 touchdowns to help the Ducks beat the third-ranked Nittany Lions 45-37 to earn the program's first Big Ten title. This is the title game, the Big Ten championship game. Relive it, noon Eastern, 9 o'clock a.m. on Friday. Then at 1 o'clock, we've got Big Ten Live. They're going to re-air day 1 of the Big Ten Media Days. They'll all be wrapped up by now. And if you missed them, didn't record them like I did, you can watch them there That was the day that Brett Bielema and Curt Cignetti talked. Tony Petitti, Matt Rule, Ryan Day, Greg Schiano. That was day one. If you missed it, that's at 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. rather, on the West Coast. Then at 5 o'clock Eastern, they'll run day two, again with PJ Fleck, Coach Braun of Northwestern, Dan Lanning, James Franklin, Jedd Fisch, and of course, Luke Fickle. And then at 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific, they'll re-rack day three. In case you missed it there, that'll have Kirk Ferentz and Sharon Moore, Jonathan Smith, Barry Odom, Sean Foster, and Lincoln Riley all on there. So let's take a look now to what's going on Saturday on the Big Ten Network. Just a couple of things I wanted to highlight here. At 2 o'clock Eastern, it's an Ohio State football classic. Ohio State, Penn State, their regular season game from last November at Beaver Stadium. Will Howard with 182 yards passing and 2 touchdowns, and the fourth-ranked Buckeyes beat the third-ranked Nittany Lions 20-13. Good ball game, another tough loss for Penn State against Ohio State. And then at 9 p.m., a Penn State football classic, Penn State at Minnesota from November of last year, where Drew Allar passed for 244 yards and a touchdown and rushed for a score and led 2 late fourth quarter conversions to lead the fourth-ranked Nittany Lions to a 26-25 victory in a squeaker over the Golden Gophers. That was, I remember that one. I watched that live for sure. And then on Sunday, we're going to pick it up at 5:30 Eastern time. The Journey, Big Ten football. They're going to feature Indiana. You can hear from Indiana coach Curt Cignetti and the Hoosiers and their historic season, and check all that up behind the scenes. Talk about how Curtis Rourke ended up going to Indiana last year as well. And they take you in behind the scenes a little bit behind the Hoosiers' victory over the Washington Huskies to remain undefeated. Then at 6 o'clock Eastern, right after that, an Indiana football classic, that Washington at Indiana game. Justice Ellison rushed for 123 yards and a touchdown as the 13th-ranked Hoosiers won 31-17 over the Huskies, and they were then 8-0 for the first time since 1967. And then finally, we'll close it out with a USC football classic, USC at UCLA from last year. Jane Maeva passing for 221 yards and a touchdown to help the Trojans win 19-13 over the Bruins. So there you have it. Big Ten classics on the Big Ten Network this weekend. Something to look forward to and look ahead and check out. In the meantime, don't forget, tomorrow we'll recap day 3 from Big Ten Media Days and everything that the coach has said. Any breaking news, we'll talk about that as well. We have all the news, analysis, and opinion right here. All things, all 18 teams for the Big Ten. Makes us the most unique podcast that covers the Big Ten in the country, in the world, for that matter. Many ways for you to interact with me. Don't forget, at Twitter, at TalkBig10. Don't forget our website, TalkBig10.com. And be sure to hit that free subscribe button so you never miss a single episode. You can go back and check out a second listen. Maybe you missed yesterday's podcast. It was pretty good. Go check it out. Also invite you to take a second listen for Brian Smith and the Portal Show, a part of the Lockdown family. You can find it on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Can't wait till we talk again tomorrow. I'll be there. Will you be there? Tell your friends we're here too. If you're a Big Ten fan, I know you know other Big Ten fans that might not know we're out here each and every day. For Lockdown Big Ten, I'm Craig Sheeman. We'll talk to you tomorrow.